What if Anakin Skywalker never became Darth Vader? What if the Chosen One followed a different path, one that reshaped the galaxy without burning temples or building empires? The prophecy promised balance, but in our timeline, we saw only destruction. In this alternate reality, Anakin discovered what balance truly meant, and everything changed. The divergence arrives when 9-year-old Anakin Skywalker stands before the Jedi Council. In our timeline, they reluctantly accepted him despite their fears. But here, Master Yoda makes a radically different choice. He doesn't reject the boy outright, sending him back to slavery. He doesn't force him into traditional training that will break him. Instead, Yoda does something the Order hasn't done in centuries. He creates an entirely new path. Yoda recognizes what others cannot see through their cloud of fear. This child isn't meant to become a Jedi or a Sith. The Force itself screams this truth to anyone willing to listen. The ancient texts, locked in the deepest temple vaults, speak of the Jedi, the original Force users who walked a path between light and dark, who understood the Force wasn't meant to be divided, but embraced in its totality. Yoda realizes the Force has sent them a student who cannot be confined to their dogma, who will either transform the Order or destroy it. Better to guide transformation than suffer destruction. The Council resist fiercely. Master Windu argues this threatens everything they've built over 1,000 years. Some masters threaten to leave entirely, but Yoda stands firm because he's had a vision clearer than any in his 900 years. He's seen 2 possible futures branching from this moment. In one, they force Anakin into their mold, suppress his capacity for attachment, treat his natural feelings as weaknesses to be eradicated, and in response, they create the very destruction they fear. Temples burning, younglings slaughtered, a dark figure in a mask hunting the survivors across a galaxy, gripped by tyranny. In the other future, the path is uncertain, shrouded in mist, but one thing is absolutely clear. The Order survives only if it changes. Qui-Gon Jinn volunteers to guide this unprecedented training. His maverick tendencies make him perfect for such a radical departure. But he doesn't survive Naboo. The Sith Lord Darth Maul cuts him down, and that tragedy could have derailed everything. At Qui-Gon's funeral, as flames consume the Jedi Master's body, and young Anakin watches through tears he's been told he shouldn't shed, Yoda approaches the grieving boy and tells him a truth that changes everything. The Jedi fear attachment because it can lead to darkness, to obsession, to the kind of possessive love that destroys what it claims to cherish. But suppressing all emotion, denying love entirely, leads to a different kind of darkness. A cold emptiness that mistakes itself for peace. A void that feels nothing and believes it's achieved transcendence. Neither extreme represents what the Force actually is. Anakin will learn to feel everything: love and loss, joy and sorrow, anger and compassion, and remain in balance. Over the next 13 years, from age 9 to 22, Anakin's training unfolds unlike any Padawans before him. It becomes a collaborative effort across the Council because no single master possesses the required knowledge. Obi-Wan Kenobi teaches lightsaber combat and traditional Force techniques, fulfilling his promise to Qui-Gon while adapting to methods he doesn't fully understand. Mace Windu, initially the most resistant to Yoda's plan, becomes one of Anakin's most important teachers, recognizing in the boy the same struggle he himself has faced. He teaches Varpad, the form that channels darkness without surrendering to it. Yoda teaches him to love without possessing, to care without controlling, to accept loss as part of the natural cycle. Anakin spends months in the archives studying both light and dark side texts, learning from Jedi holocrons and forbidden philosophies that challenge everything the Order has taught for centuries. Unlike our timeline, Anakin openly discusses his growing feelings for Senator Padme Amidala with his masters. The Council is uncomfortable, many disapprove, but Yoda convinces them that forcing Anakin to choose between love and duty would shatter everything they're building. They allow the relationship, teaching him instead to love without attachment, to cherish without possessing. It becomes another lesson in balance. In his 5th year of training, Anakin does something the Jedi Council never expected. He asks permission to return to Tatooine to free his mother from slavery. The Council debates, but Yoda approves. Anakin returns with the Order's resources, purchases Shmi's freedom, and relocates her to Naboo, where she lives peacefully, no longer haunted by the desert planet that took so much from her. When the Clone Wars begin, 22-year-old Anakin is unlike any Force user in modern times. He wields both passion and serenity with equal facility. He can draw upon the dark side without being consumed because he's been taught that darkness is part of him, part of everyone, and denying it only gives it power. When he fights, his forms blend Jedi restraint with Sith aggression in ways that unsettle opponents. He leads clone troopers who develop fierce loyalty, not just to his tactical brilliance, but to the way he values their individual lives, refuses to see them as expendable. His reputation spreads across the galaxy. Some call him the chosen one fulfilling his destiny. Others call him a grey Jedi walking a dangerous line. A few whisper he's a true Jedi returned. Then, Anakin begins doing the impossible, something no Jedi has successfully attempted in living memory. On the battlefield, when he defeats Separatist Force users, dark-side assassins, and fallen Jedi who've joined Count Dooku, he doesn't kill them if he can possibly avoid it. Instead, he does what his unique training has prepared him for. He reaches into them with the Force, finds the wound that drove them to darkness, the pain or fear or anger that twisted them, and he heals it. Not by suppressing their emotions or forcing them into Jedi compliance, but by showing them a third option they didn't know existed. He shows them balance, demonstrates that they can acknowledge their darkness without being ruled by it. Some resist violently, too far gone to accept redemption, and they must be stopped. But scores of them across 3 years of war lay down their weapons. Even Count Dooku himself, the elegant fallen Jedi, who once walked the council chambers, feels Anakin's touch during their final duel and chooses a different path. They feel something from him they've never felt from a Jedi before. Understanding instead of judgment, acceptance instead of condemnation, the possibility of redemption without having to deny everything they've felt and experienced. Word of these conversions spreads, and it terrifies both the Jedi Council and Chancellor Palpatine. The Sith Lord has been watching Anakin's unusual training for years, adjusting his centuries-old plans, searching for leverage. But every manipulation Palpatine attempts slides off Anakin like water off stone. Fear doesn't work on someone taught to acknowledge and integrate their darkness. Promises of power mean nothing to someone already balanced. The boy's love for Padme, which should have been the perfect tool, is openly acknowledged by the Order itself. The Council grows increasingly uncomfortable. Master Windu confronts Yoda in private. This isn't the Jedi way. Anakin uses dark side techniques, forms attachments, converts enemies, creating a network answering to no authority. What happens when war ends? But Yoda's response changes everything. He reveals what visions have shown repeatedly. The Jedi Order itself has become an instrument of imbalance. 10,000 Jedi, all suppressing half of themselves, all afraid of their own shadows, all enforcing a philosophy that demands people deny their nature. Meanwhile, the Sith hide in darkness, fully embraced by their worst impulses, consumed by hunger for power. Neither path represents what the Force actually is. Both are extremes, distortions, and the Force itself is pushing back against this imbalance, using Anakin as its instrument of correction. Then comes the pivotal moment. In deep meditation, balancing between light and dark, Anakin senses a massive disturbance, a black hole of dark energy consuming everything. The source has sat at power's center for 13 years, Chancellor Palpatine. But Anakin doesn't rush to confront him. Reaching carefully through the Force, he discovers Palpatine isn't just a Sith Lord. He's a wound in the Force itself, consuming Force-sensitive children for decades, erasing knowledge, destroying traditions. Palpatine reveals himself, desperate and arrogant. He realizes Anakin has detected him, knows his tactics have failed, yet cannot accept defeat. He offers partnership. Together they could end both Jedi and Sith, create a new order combining Anakin's balance with Palpatine's power. The Emperor and Chosen One ruling together, bringing peace through absolute control. In our timeline, Anakin would have been tempted beyond resistance. But this Anakin knows balance can't be imposed from above. It must be chosen freely. Control is just another imbalance. He sees Palpatine not as mentor, but as warning. Anakin refuses clearly, but he doesn't attack. Instead, he reaches through the Force to every connected being. Force users he's redeemed, Jedi who've questioned rigid ways, practitioners of ancient traditions scattered across the galaxy. He shows them Palpatine's truth and asks them to witness. Within hours and days, thousands arrive on Coruscant, the scores Anakin redeemed. Former separatist Force users beside Jedi Knights, Grey Jedi, guardians of extinct traditions, witches of Dathomir, guardians of the wills, even reformed Count Dooku. They converge not as an army but as witnesses, proving the Force exceeds any single philosophy. Palpatine unleashes Order 66 desperately. In the final year of war, Anakin sensed the inhibitor chips and worked in secret to remove many. Not all chips are gone. The galaxy erupts in violence. Nearly 7,000 of 10,000 Jedi die in the first hours, but 3,000 survive because enough clones refused the Order. Some temples are damaged, but the wholesale destruction of our timeline never occurs. Some surviving Jedi answer Anakin's call. Others remain scattered, connected through the Force, adding strength across the stars. It's a terrible price, but not the extinction Palpatine planned. They're enough to witness, enough to change everything. The confrontation with Palpatine doesn't happen in a Senate chamber or in a Sith Lord's secret lair. It happens in the Force itself, on a plane of existence beyond the physical. Anakin, standing at the center of hundreds of Force users gathered in shared purpose, becomes a conduit for their combined will. Jedi and former Sith, light and dark, every shade between, all unified not in philosophy, but in recognition that Palpatine represents a wound that must be healed. They channel energy through Anakin, and he reaches into Palpatine's wound, offering healing, redemption, release from endless hunger. For one frozen moment that seems to stretch for eternity, Palpatine feels something he hasn't felt in 70 years. The memory of who he was before he became Darth Sidious, before he murdered his entire family, before he chose absolute darkness as his path. He was a young man once, brilliant and ambitious. The combined Force presence offers him redemption, the peace of letting go, release from the hunger that's driven him to consume everything and everyone around him. For one moment, he could choose differently. But Palpatine is too far gone, too thoroughly consumed by his own choices, too identified with the darkness to imagine being anything else. He rejects the offer with fury and attacks with everything he has. The battle is brief but cataclysmic, shaking the foundations of the Senate building. Palpatine is the most powerful Sith Lord in 1,000 years, possibly the most powerful dark side user who has ever lived. But he's facing something the Sith never prepared for, something their philosophy can't account for. Not an army of Jedi wielding only the light and their moral certainty. Not a rival Sith embracing only darkness and hunger for power. He faces the full spectrum of the Force unified in purpose, light and dark, emotion and serenity, passion and peace, all working together for the first time since the ancient Jedi walked the galaxy. His power, vast as it is, accumulated over decades of dark side study and consuming lesser beings, can't overcome that. When he falls not to hatred or vengeance or the triumph of light over darkness. but to balance itself, reasserting its claim on the galaxy. The Clone Wars end with revelation, not empire. The Republic learns their Chancellor was a Sith Lord, that the war was orchestrated from both sides. The Separatist leadership discovers they too were pawns in Palpatine's game and lays down arms. Systems that fought for independence negotiate reintegration, this time with genuine reforms addressing the corruption that drove them away. Disillusionment is profound across the galaxy, but rather than despair, this shared betrayal opens space for something new, for genuine healing between former enemies. Anakin doesn't become Emperor or Grand Master. He becomes a Wayseeker, a guide teaching that the Force isn't about choosing light or dark, but finding personal balance. He establishes temples across the galaxy, not for indoctrination, but for education where Force sensitives learn all aspects and choose their own path. The 3,000 surviving Jedi face a choice. Many, especially the younger ones, embrace Anakin's teachings with relief, keeping their title but abandoning rigid codes. They're allowed to love, to feel, to form attachments, to experience the full range of what it means to be alive. Others, particularly the old guard who cannot imagine another way, maintain traditional practices in isolated enclaves. They become one path among many, exactly what they should have been all along. The Sith don't return because the conditions creating them no longer exist. Force users don't choose between saints or monsters. They can be complete, embracing power without corruption, feeling anger without consumption, loving without possession. 20 years pass. The galaxy isn't perfect. Conflicts and injustices remain, but the fundamental imbalance plaguing civilization for millennia has been addressed. Force users are individuals finding their own balance. The galaxy is messier but more alive, more free, more capable of genuine growth and change. Anakin Skywalker, now in his 40s, has become a legend not for conquest or redemption, but for transformation. Stories about him spread across the galaxy, growing in the telling. He's the chosen one who brought balance not through destruction and rebirth, not through tearing down the old to build the new from ashes, but through integration and evolution. He showed the galaxy that the prophecy was never about eliminating the dark side or empowering the light side to absolute dominance. It was about transcending the very idea that they're separate things, about understanding that the Force is one, complex and complete, and those who wield it must be whole, not divided against themselves. This timeline shows what was possible if the Jedi had recognized Anakin's true nature from the beginning. If they'd been wise enough to see forcing him into their mold would break both him and the Order. If they'd acknowledged their 1,000 years of dogma might not be the only way to serve the Force. The galaxy paid a price. 7,000 Jedi died, war raged 3 years, countless perished, but so much less than our timeline where the Jedi were exterminated and an empire rose. The cost is measured in what was preserved. Millions who died under the Empire live full lives here. Alderaan orbits intact, never shattered by a Death Star never built. Clones aren't discarded, but recognized as individuals, given choices, allowed lives beyond war. Billions live in a galaxy that learned to embrace complexity over simple answers. The greatest difference is this. In our timeline, the Skywalker legacy is tragedy and redemption, teaching you must be broken before becoming whole. In this timeline, it's integration, showing you can choose wholeness from the beginning if someone teaches it's possible. The Force's true intent for Anakin Skywalker in this alternate reality wasn't to tear down the old orders through violence and rebuild from ashes. It wasn't to punish the galaxy for the Jedi's arrogance or the Sith's hunger. It was to show both ancient orders that their absolute philosophies were prisons, cages they'd built for themselves and tried to impose on everyone else, and that the only way to true balance was to transcend the binary they'd created and enforced for millennia. This Anakin became not a cautionary tale whispered in frightened tones, not a fallen hero whose name brings sadness, but a guiding light showing what's possible when you embrace the full spectrum of what you are. He became not a weapon of destruction, but an instrument of transformation, not an avatar of tragedy, but a teacher of integration. But here's the question haunting even this brighter timeline. What happens when that balance itself becomes threatened? Because deep in the unknown regions, something ancient has been watching. Something existing outside the binary the galaxy escaped. It observed the Jedi's reign with cold interest, watched Palpatine's rise with patience. It's been dormant for millennia, waiting for this precise moment, waiting for the galaxy to achieve balance, for light and dark to unify, for the Force to flow freely. Because that perfect harmony generates a resonance unlike anything in recorded history, a resonance not seen since the ancient Jedi walked the stars. And that resonance is a beacon, a signal, an invitation. This ancient intelligence views balance not as harmony, but as vulnerability, as the opening it's waited eons to exploit. It doesn't care about light or dark. It feeds on both equally. It sees the Force not as something to serve or control, but as something to consume. And it's coming. If you've enjoyed this journey through an alternate Star Wars timeline, there are more untold stories waiting to be discovered. Join our growing community of Star Wars enthusiasts who believe in exploring these what-if moments that could have changed the galaxy far, far away. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and activate notifications to catch our next alternative Star Wars story. Each tale offers a new perspective on the characters we love and the choices that define them. Remember to share your thoughts in the comments below. What other pivotal moments in the Star Wars saga would you like to see explored differently? Your ideas might inspire our next adventure. May the Force be with you, always.